Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special inaugural episode of the 217 Horror Podcast. Of course, I am your host, the Jameus, joined alongside the always fascinating Ash Rose, and you can kind of see in the picture there, Ash is joined by Draven. Named after the Crow character, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Named after the Crow character. The good one from the 90s, not the recent FKA Twigs one. We don't really know what that was. But this is our very first episode. We have a fantastic show for you. We are very excited for you to see what is in store for the podcast and the channel going forward here at Death Arts 13. So without further ado, Ash, take us away. What's going on with you?
Oh, I've been busy with work. We got a couple of interviews coming out that are sitting in our vaults. I guess our crypt, we could call it that. We got a couple of them coming up. We got some TNA ones. We got some music ones. And, of course, we have our music history podcast, Decades in Darkness, which is written by Jameus. And, of course, some of them researched by our Death Arts 13 team. And, of course, right now you'll see a bunch of our credited sponsors pop up, yada, yada, yada.
What's going on, y'all? This is Jacob with Secret Society of Gods, and I've spent the past half decade making content for bands from all over the world to help them grow their audiences organically. I never use AI and I never use bots, so if you're an artist trying to grow your audience, hit me up. Send me one message on Instagram and we will get a plan going for you.
This episode is powered by Curse Cosmetics. Use my code AROSEDISTORTION for 10% off, where horror meets beauty. And also go to Abracadabra NYC, where horror is year-round. The year-round Halloween store. That's Abracadabra NYC. Same code for 10% off, AROSEDISTORTION.
Ding. And yeah, we can continue now.
So, ladies and gentlemen, our first topic today is recent comments from Leigh Whannell's regarding Sinners, Ryan Coogler's big hit, starring Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld. Whannell, obviously a horror director, pretty big one. He did The Wolfman this year. I didn't really care for that, but otherwise, his record is pretty spot on. The Whannell said, it doesn't matter how many great horror movies get made, doesn't matter how many times they've saved the theatrical movie business since COVID, which is true, they have. That's an interesting note we'll pivot to in a minute. The genre still cannot get any respect. It's not a horror crowd is always there. This includes filmmakers who cannot admit that they made a horror movie. Whannell said on Blue Sky regarding Sinners, in response to a post that said the real reason Sinners is so good is that it's not a horror movie, rather a movie about the Black and immigrant experience in America, which it's about all three of those things, really. A movie can be about more than one thing, but what were your thoughts on this, Ashley?
Well, I didn't care for Wolfman either. I didn't finish it, I'll be honest with you. That's just my personal opinion. I was going to give it another shot later on.
There's a reason we named the show after a different Julia Garner horror movie from 2025.
I'm just saying, I want to give it another shot. I think during the time that I was watching it, I just wasn't engaged into watching anything. I just had it on. So there's that, a horror movie or any film for matter can be it can be about a listed number of things. It doesn't necessarily have to have one particular theme, genre put into it. This goes this is kind of like comic book writing. There's multi-layers to different stories, A, B, C, and then you have, that's A, B, and C would be your primary storylines that are taking place throughout the entire story arc. So you have one main plot going on, and then you have similar plots that are happening behind that main plot too. So I kind of look at certain films in that aspect too, that it doesn't necessarily just have to be just about one particular thing. And I think that's completely okay. other than that, I know there's people that would just prefer just one genre, like, hey, this is just about vampires and that's what this is about. That's just an example, but I prefer more detailed storytelling. Once again, that's my opinion.
The Lee Warnell, with Wolfman, I remember, just because you brought it up that you didn't care for, I remember a friend last year who reads and processes Hollywood scripts, because he knew I was a big Ozark fan, told me there's a Julia Garner horror movie coming out next year that you're going to love. And I remember going, that's it? And then Weapons trailer dropped. I'm like, oh, okay. But I actually do like Warnell. Insidious is one of my favorite horror movies. I think he's a phenomenal filmmaker. I think he knows what he's talking about. When someone has a successful career, certain movies I didn't care for aside, as Warnell in a certain genre, it's clear that they understand the genre. And for me, great horror. Look, the issue with Wolfman is the issue with the way most people view horror. Most of the genre fare tends to be too reliant on jump scares because they don't have a good story. Too reliant on visuals because they don't have a good story. And great horror is something that can be elevated beyond the traditional scariness of the horror. Take Together, for example, a recent movie from this year. The horror is the commitment. There are a lot of people that are scared of the commitment that comes with a relationship. That's terrifying to some people. Take Videodrome. The horror is the parasocial relationship that we have with the characters on our television screen. The horror can be, when horror embodies the terror of the emotional as much as the physical, that's when a horror can become really good. So yeah, Sinners, for the record, Sinners, Ryan Coogler, favorite movie of the year for me. They introduced the vampire element in the very first cold open scene, but then they don't go back to it for an hour into the runtime. And the entire time I'm hanging out with these characters, I want more of all of the characters. I forget that I'm watching a horror movie because it's just a great movie. And then you introduce the vampire supernatural elements, and the horror isn't necessarily the jump scares of the vampires. It isn't the visual of Haley Steinfeld biting Michael B. Jordan's neck. The horror is they have to both live, and they can't live with their brother in their life. The horror is the experience of what life was like for people back then. The horror is so far beyond it wasn't scary. A horror movie's job isn't supposed to be scary. A horror movie's job is supposed to explore the emotions that terrify you. And I think Sinners did a great job at that. So yeah, while it wasn't a traditional jump scare kind of movie, that doesn't make it any less valid as a horror movie. And there are different types of horror, just like there are different types of every movie. Every genre has a different type. Take romance, for example. The rom-com is nothing like Before Sunrise or a musical. Like you can go into drama. There are different types of dramas. There's different types of every genre of movie. I feel like that gets lost. And I feel like people are too harsh to judge. Oh, with Long Legs, we are promised the scariest movie we've ever seen. So that needs to be horror now.
How did you feel about Long Legs?
I very much enjoyed it, but I get why people felt, for lack of a better term, blueballed by it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was very much a 90s throwback thriller kind of feel, which is one of my favorite subgenres in movies. Like, I love a movie like Primal Fear. But when you give me a movie more like Primal Fear than a jump scare horror movie, and you're promising in the marketing the scariest movie you've ever seen, I can see why people felt a little disappointed. I feel like the marketing did not match the movie. And I can see why people had an issue with that. But as for Sinners itself, I think it's a phenomenal movie. I think it's the best movie of the year. And just because it's more prestigious,
It has a different take. It really is a different take on the vampire film. I consider it more of a supernatural,
right,
than an actual vampire, which is probably why I enjoyed it a lot more than some other films. But I did like the aspect that they introduced a lot of supernatural elements in occult.
I think horror is just. I also think we're a horror punk channel here at Death Arts 13. We're not a horror channel. We're a horror punk channel.
We're an alternative channel. I've always considered us more alternative, but yeah, I mean, we primarily cater to horror punk.
The first thing I wrote video-wise here at this channel was on, I believe, no, it was on the Misfits. Never mind. I was going to say it was on The Cure. But
that was Misfits.
The Cure.
And that was by accident.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was supposed to be The Cure, right? It was supposed to be The Cure. So the Lord
it all worked out.
Of The Cure in his book explains a lot of what makes goth. Goth has nothing to do with the horror aspect. It has everything to do with the feel, the genre, the exploration. And I think supernatural is just as much part of that. So, and I think another thing that movies have a problem with is supernatural movies play by their own rules. There's an established rule that is nothing like our world. And when you can explore other movies in those worlds, it allows you to explore different movie tropes without it feeling tropey. It allows you to tell the same story in a different way. And I feel like that's what filmmakers are always going for. So I agree with Winnell on everything he said regarding this. It falls right in line with what I view horror to be.
I think it's like I said, I really enjoyed Sinner's aspect on how it was different compared to a lot of it. I was expecting a supernatural film, but I wasn't expecting the vampires. And that came until you actually saw the film. And I'm going based off of when you first see the trailer.
Okay.
I think when it comes to supernatural horror, I guess that's why it's a little fearful in that aspect. It's the fear of the unknown.
Right.
Or if you do know about the supernatural, it's the fear of knowing what could possibly be it.
And I think they explored that within the character dynamics. I think they explored that within the character dynamics too. When Smoke goes back home to see Annie for the first time, and she reveals she gave them that necklace to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. The entire rest of the movie, she knows what's coming. That's why she's afraid, or she thinks she knows what's coming, and she thinks it's something supernatural. She doesn't realize it's vampires. She thinks she knows what's coming. Everybody else, especially Grace, didn't. And you really see that in their character dynamics and the way they respond to everything that happens. And I think that's really interesting. One person's fear is what they know, the other is what they don't know. And there's a lot of pull there. You can tug on that rope a lot. And I think Coogler did a really good job exploring that idea.
Another thing about when it comes to horror in general, I think one of the primary aspects of what makes horror is the soundtrack, the sound.
Ooh, anything that can build the intensity, the anxiety. Because all of your scares, anything that doesn't make you feel uneasy is ineffective. Instantly.
I think Insidious does a great job with that.
Yeah, now.
I think if we're going to talk about original, like old school horror, I think Night of the Living Dead, the original one, does a very good job of it as well.
Right. It's not a horror movie, but Body Double by De Palma does a really good job with it.
I would say even 7 does a good job.
These Jaws, the done anytime they go to the water is it's iconic. Just how uneasy it makes you feel. Like you cannot hear. If you see a shark now, you think of the done. And I think that's a really important thing too. So yeah, I think anything that builds tension. Horror isn't necessarily scares, it's the tension, it's the anxiety. It's how it makes you feel versus how it makes you react. And I think that gets lost. And I do want to pivot here because another thing one else said that I want to touch on that I don't necessarily know if we're going to go into a lot of detail on, but I do want to touch on is he says that doesn't matter how many times they've saved the theatrical movie business since COVID. And I want to say, I believe the highest grossing horror movie of all time is still It. The first one, $700 million Labor Day weekend. So horror hasn't quite reached the heights. But if you look at horror in the last couple of years, it's the one thing that continuously makes profits at the box office. And I feel like people want the communal experience that comes with a horror movie. This year alone, all this talk about Warner Brothers becoming the first studio to have 7 straight $40 million weekend or higher openings. It's continuing this weekend with their 8th with The Conjuring Last Rites, which is going to open to $80 million, double the highest opening weekend of any Conjuring movie. Double. I believe the second one made $43 million. So if it opens to $80 million, it's more or less double. Not quite, but for all intents and purposes. If you look upon that stretch, Sinners, they had Final Destination Bloodlines, Conjuring, Weapons. They had Companion earlier this year that eked out a theatrical profit.
Oh, I forgot about Companion. I haven't seen it, but I've been wanting to check it out.
It's excellent. That might be one we cover in the future to give you a reason to watch it. The Warner Bros. Isn't just making money at the box office. Yeah, Minecraft made money. They had, I forget what the other one was. They had one more that made good money. But a vast majority of these are horror projects. The horror is the one thing that's guaranteed to make a bank right now. That's why you can have an A24 or a Neon come out of nowhere with a bunch of horror and suddenly they're an established studio. A24, Hereditary, Midsommar, all came out. The Witch. They made the X Pearl. They made their name on horror. Neon's kind of doing the same thing with Long Legs, as we discussed, with all these different movies. They had the monkey from the same filmmaker.
Oh yeah, I did see the monkey.
But Together came out this year, did good numbers at the box office for Neon. The business model of big tentpole films might be failing, but horror is kind of bringing back the mid-budget film, and I think Winnell was right to point that out, even though nobody's really talking about it. What are your thoughts?
I don't have any other ones about Sinners.
Fair enough. So with that down, because I feel like we're rambling at this point, and I promise you that is not what I'm trying to do. We appreciate y'all listening, and I don't want y'all to just think I'm talking to talk. Let's move on to our next topic. Speaking of...
Do you want to talk about the Long Walk screening, or do you want to talk about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein?
I wasn't going to go there to either of those places just yet, but since you mentioned it, I think the Long Walk is a good place to go, because we were just talking about getting people out to theaters. And what I find interesting about that is the Long Walk, for those of you who don't know, an upcoming adaptation of a Richard Bachman novel, otherwise known as Stephen King. We have something about him coming out soon on the channel.
Oh yeah, that's right. We do got a Stephen King segment coming up.
Keep your eyes out on that. the long walk is similar to, it's basically Stand By Me meets the Hunger Games as a concept. The concept is that anybody who doesn't walk for a certain amount of time at 3 miles per hour or higher gets capped, basically. So the screening of the movie coming out, starring Mark Hamill, is hosted by Lionsgate. Audiences will have to walk on a treadmill during the duration of the screening at least 3 miles per hour. And if they stop, well, they don't get capped or executed. But they do get escorted out of the screening and will not be allowed to watch the remainder of the movie.
I
And
wonder how long people have actually lasted, if they've lasted the whole film. Because how long is the long? Do we know how long the film is?
I can check its Letterboxd at that real quick. The long.
I wonder if it's an hour and 40, or is it like 2 hours? I can't imagine the long walk would be that long.
108 minutes. So about an hour and 45 minutes. Give or take a couple minutes. So I'm interested in this because you know what it reminds me of, Ashley? Admittedly, it's fully a gimmick, but it reminds me of what William Castle used to do. And for those who aren't familiar, William Castle was basically Roger Corman before Roger Corman, about 10 years before Roger Corman. In the 50s and 60s, he would make these horror B movies on shoestring budgets, and I mean shoestring budgets, but they always made bank because he always had some kind of gimmick. The one that comes to mind immediately is from a movie called Homicidal, where he promises you the scariest movie you'll ever see. And then right before the climax, the director, William Castle himself, comes on screen, walks in, and says, "We will not be showing you the duration of this movie for 45 seconds, puts a timer on screen. You have 45 seconds to walk out of the theater if you think you're going to be scared too much and ask for a refund, and the theater will give it to you." And then it hit the climax as to build an anticipation that this is the scariest climax anybody will ever see. The issue that Castle had with that particular movie is that, funnily enough, dude, back then, you know how they would just leave the movie on loop, and you could come and go as you please until like the late 60s. People would purposely stay through the showing and then wait till it came up again so they could get a refund seeing the whole movie.
Another thing that I was thinking about actually in regards to something along the lines that's similar but not is, do you remember the trailer to The Last House on the Left, the original Wes Craven film?
Somebody brought that up. I was on the phone with somebody today. Somebody you've probably heard of, but I'm not going to give their name. And he asked me, I was talking to him about the different marketing gimmicks or just of horror in general. And he said his favorite movie is The Last House on the Left, the original. I've never seen it, and which is crazy because I watch anything Wes Craven.
You've never seen the first Wes Craven film?
I've never seen it. I've seen almost anything else.
You definitely got to see The Last House on the Left, the original.
I've seen everything Wes Craven, from Scream to Hills Have Eyes to Music of the Heart. Meryl Streep in a Wes Craven movie.
Oh, shit, I forgot about that.
Meryl Streep getting Oscar nominated for Wes Craven is one of the weirdest facts of all time. But no, he was telling me the story of when he was growing up. The radio ads would be like, when you get to the theater, you have to tell yourself, it's just a movie. It's just a movie.
It's only a movie.
Or it's only a movie. It's not real.
It's also in the film trailer too.
I find that fascinating. I think that's a great way. See, what's great about this marketing, and similar to last year when A24 had heretic showings where an employee would bring in a blueberry pie at a certain point in the film. It's a way to immerse you with what's going on screen. and it's a way to make the theatrical experience stand out versus just an experience you can get at home. I think that The Long Walk is a fascinating gimmick idea, just because of how immersive it is. And I really like that. What did you think when you saw the news that Lionsgate was doing a showing like this?
You had told me about it first, and then I actually ended up seeing a clip of it, of people just like giving up on the treadmill.
Oh, you need to send me that clip.
Yeah, I actually saw the clip of it. I can't think of where. I think I actually saw it. It might have been on TikTok. Maybe. I could be wrong, but I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Would you do a strip screening like this?
I can do it.
I didn't ask can you do it. I asked would you do it. There's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, if I had nothing going on that day, but I definitely can do it. Like,
nobody likes to brag, Ashley.
I did 21.3K steps today.
I don't keep track of that stuff.
Like,
That's fantastic.
Can't see
Probably a lot more than I did.
Yeah, did 21.3K. So I occasionally enjoy a good hike, you know.
I love a good hike when the wind blows through your hair, man. The one thing to note about The Long Walk is it stars David Johnson, who supposedly, from early screenings and early buzz, gives a phenomenal performance. I'm hearing one of the best horror performances of the year. And this comes just over a year after the breakout of David Johnson in Alien Romulus. So with Alien Romulus, there was actually news regarding Alien Romulus this week that broke. Fede Alvarez, the director and screenwriter for Alien Romulus, and I'll circle back to Alien Romulus as a whole in a second because that goes back to an earlier point about horror at the box office. Said that he is no longer set to direct the sequel to Alien Romulus, and it's by choice, despite doing the screenplay, because he feels in certain vein of the franchise, Ridley Scott immediately gave James Cameron the go-ahead to do his vision of what an alien movie is. And then, speaking of Seven, which you brought up earlier, they moved from James Cameron to David Fincher. And for what it's worth, it's probably my actual second least favorite Fincher movie because Mank exists. But I still think it's a fascinating look into the lore because Fincher had such a unique take on. Ridley Scott explored what's scary in space. The vastness of space, the fact that you're alone. Earlier you talked about the fear of the unknown.
It's the fear of the unknown, and then there's also the fear of knowing, of what you know and like the other person doesn't know. And
that's what the first two Aliens movies explored. The idea that in the first movie, we didn't see the alien until very late in the film. The alien has a total of 5 minutes of screen time. The xenomorph doesn't show up until they battle Sigourney Weaver, Ripley.
How do you feel about the design of the xenomorph?
I love it.
You know, it was originally drawn and designed by the artist H.R. Geiger.
That's interesting.
And who also, interesting enough, Danzig, I believe, number 3, How Gods Kill. That cover's also designed. So if you look at that cover, and you'll see how it would be this like a similar, the same artist.
With the xenomorph, the entire movie builds up to the climax between Ripley and the xenomorph, but the audience doesn't know if the xenomorph actually exists. They're being hunted, but you don't know what's actually hunting them. That's where what's terrifying about Alien. Then when James Cameron takes it over, I don't like Aliens the way a lot of other people do. I think it's way too much of an action fair than a horror fair. it
can
just
see
doesn't
that.
do it for me.
No,
But
I can see where you get that from.
James Cameron, and I love James Cameron as a filmmaker. I just don't care for aliens. Love True Lies, love the Terminator movies, love Titanic.
Like
I
True
like James
Lies?
Cameron. I love True Lies. Jamie Lee Curtis is one of my favorite actresses of all time, and that's a banger Jamie Lee Curtis performance. Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, even though that's not a horror movie. So with James Cameron, Ripley already knows what's out there, and that's part of it. So she has to battle multiple while protecting other people from the xenomorphs themselves. The fear of known is explored with Ripley in the second one versus the fear of the unknown. So then you get to Fincher, you've already done both of the obvious avenues. So Fincher explores more of the world building. So each director had a different take, and that's what made the series so successful until it kind of evaporated and it was dead in the water as a solidified IP, kind of like Predator, until Prey revitalized Predator, and then they greenlit an Alien movie.
Predator, the only Predator movie I actually like is the first one.
I don't even like the first one.
That's really it. The second one, In the City, no, I'm okay with that. Wasn't there one with Adrian Brody?
Yes.
See, that's how little I paid attention to that franchise.
That was Predators. That was in 2010.
I actually saw that.
He has such a weird career, man.
We could talk about that another time if we talk about
especially since I don't consider Adrian Brody a horror guy. I consider him more of a makes the same kind of movie a bunch of times guy.
he had like an interesting career. Like what was he in? Like The Pianist?
It's funny. He won an Academy Award for Pianist. He beat some of the greatest actors of all time. He went up against Nick Cage, Daniel Day-Lewis, Jack Nicholson, I want to say Michael Caine.
I thought The Pianist was a great film.
He's phenomenal in that. We're going to talk about Roman Polanski's career a lot. As much as I don't like the guy, and I think he's one of the biggest scumbags in Hollywood, Rosemary's Baby and Repulsion are films that are going to come up on this podcast in the future.
I'll be honest with you. I never liked Rosemary's Baby.
I don't either, but I love Repulsion. And then he kind of just disappeared, did a bunch of direct-to-video, except for Wes Anderson, and then Wes Anderson movies for 20 years. And then he came back with The Brutalist, which is a similar character to The Pianist. And now he's a 2-time Academy Award nominee. I'm an award winner for doing nothing for 20 years.
I mean, we can always talk about his career another time.
He's a fascinating cat. But I will say this.
Wait, hold on. He was also in a Dario Argento film, wasn't he? Adrian Brody.
He might have been.
Now that I think about it, I think I've seen that film one time.
He was in a movie. I looked it up. He was in a movie called Giallo. I've never seen that.
I have seen it a long time ago when it came out. That's a Dario Argento film.
I think the more fascinating thing is looking this up is Dario Argento is still making movies. I would have lost that bet. His most recent was a movie called Dark Glasses in 2022.
I haven't seen that one. I believe his daughter still acts in his films too.
I
could be wrong if she still acts in them, but I know she was in. I believe she was in a few of them.
But the Alien news is a big deal because right now we're doing Alien Earth, which is the #1 streaming show in the world right now. Surprisingly, Hulu doesn't get many of those. As good as their content is, The Bears Fate, Only Murders. Hulu makes a lot of great content, but they don't get a lot of chart toppers.
I thought it was on FX.
FX, all of FX stuff is Hulu's originals because of who owns it now.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you for catching me up. I actually was going to start it, and I just haven't started.
I think it's okay. I think the first 3 episodes left a lot to be desired, and then the last 2 were really strong installments. It's a lot more of a character study. It takes place right before the events of the first film, but actually it takes place during the events of the first film. But they're so far out of space that the characters in the first film don't know anything that's going on.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it's a good character study. They lean more into how 8 companies own everything, why the companies own everything. So if you're interested in the lore of Weyland-Yutani, it's a really good show. I think they do a really good job. I think they do. I enjoyed Romulus a lot more than I'm currently enjoying Alien Earth, for the record. But I think they did
thought
better.
Romulus was really good. I did have a friend of mine tell me that he really liked it as well, but he felt the cast was a little too young for his taste. And and then when I watched it, I understood what he meant.
I think Isabella Merced is about to be one of the busiest women in Hollywood.
Yeah, like I finally understood, what he was talking about. Like it is a young cast,
right? Kaylee Spaney's really good, but she's young.
Yeah, no, well, they all are. The majority
Right.
of them, the Romulus. But I think it's really interesting, and it's good from that point of view. I thought Romulus was really good.
How does a younger person respond to the horrors?
And that's what I liked about it, was the fact that it's like, we're used to like
Experienced people in space.
experienced people in space, adults that have been up there, that have those working
Right.
professions.
And the whole point of Romulus was they're not supposed to be in space.
Yeah, they don't know. And how do you react as
A
a young
civilian.
person, a civilian, a young person, whether you be like in your late teens or your early 20s? So to me, it made sense. And I thought it was really good.
The one thing I do think Alien Earth does better is their callbacks, their crowd pleasing is a lot less in your face than Romulus was, because Romulus took a lot directly from dialogue. They had that really weird let's bring back the actual dead actor spot that didn't need to come back. I believe that was Ian Holm. The reasoning for Ian Holm getting the spot, even though he passed, was because supposedly they felt bad that he was the only iteration of that character that didn't get to play it twice. Like even Michael Fassbender played it twice. It was an exact quote I saw from somebody who made the movie, and I still feel like it wasn't necessary, but it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the movie.
I thought it was a bit odd how it was placed.
Right. That was my one issue with that movie. Otherwise, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, other than which, it's funny that you brought that up, because I was thinking that when I saw the film, that I thought it was a bit odd. Like it was a bit of an odd placement, but whatever. Let's get past it.
Right. And I don't think the content of it was bad. I kind of thought it was in poor taste, and it kind of took me out of the movie for a little bit. But other than that, it was a 5-star. I thought it was
I thought Romulus was really good. I did.
For me, it was the second best Alien movie behind the original. For me,
I can see where you get that, and I would agree with you.
But I think it's interesting that Fede Alvarez, he's not against doing sequels. He did Don't Breathe 2 after he did the first. Then again, he didn't direct Don't Breathe 2, did he?
You're gonna have to look that up, because I'm not.
He did Don't Breathe, and then he wrote the sequel and didn't direct it. So I wonder how much is he doesn't want to direct the same franchise multiple times. We'll never know, because his Texas Chainsaw Massacre adaptation never got off the ground for a sequel because people didn't take to the first movie of his. But I find it interesting that he did the same thing with Don't Breathe. So I don't know how much of that is Fede Alvarez really believing I should pass it on to who I think the next big director is, like Ridley did with Cameron and Cameron did with Fincher, or he just doesn't want to do sequels. But I do think it's interesting that he's shying away from the movie that made him a household director for the first time. And it's not like he's not done big properties. It's just he hasn't done big properties well enough to where people knew, oh, I need to, that guy makes a movie that's an event. So I find that interesting. What were your thoughts on the news that Fede Alvarez does not want to direct a sequel, even though he wrote it?
I think my only response to you was okay. Like, I'm not surprised. Like, I'm legitimately not surprised. I'm just like, okay. And then I think that was my only response to you was okay. Like, I'm not surprised.
So I found that interesting. We have a couple more topics, but we want to be mindful of your time too. So I don't know how many we're getting to, but speaking of horror and theatrical experiences, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein appeared at the Venice Film Festival this past week as of this recording, to some interesting reviews. But I think the more interesting
reviews, because I want to watch the film.
It's a Netflix original, and of course Netflix CEO is very apprehensive regarding putting their movies in theaters. He does not believe the theatrical experience. He believes you can get just as good at home. He wants to discourage theatrical experiences because Netflix itself already has such an imprint on the streaming model that if the streaming model is the only one that exists, they are a lot better off. They have a larger market share. The issue is Netflix leaves a lot of money on the table when it comes to not putting their movies in theaters, as seen recently with the K-pop Demon Hunters success, what have you. What's interesting is Guillermo del Toro worked into the contract when he sold the rights to Netflix to put it in theaters. Similar to Scorsese with The Irishman, similar to how Greta Gerwig strong-armed Netflix into giving Narnia an IMAX release, the upcoming Narnia adaptation, and similar to the two Knives Out films from Rian Johnson. Mm-hmm. So it's not unprecedented, but it very, very, very rarely happens. Netflix is giving this a theatrical release at the behest of Guillermo del Toro. So I find it interesting that Netflix is taking that step with a horror movie, but the reviews themselves, since you mentioned you hadn't heard them, are kind of like every Guillermo del Toro movie, at least for me. Because I had a lot of the issue that people are having with this movie I had with Pinocchio. In fact, Pan's Labyrinth is the only Guillermo del Toro movie that I think is perfect and a great art of storytelling. I had a similar issue with Shape of the Water.
Shape of the Water is the only Guillermo del Toro film I haven't seen.
It's the only one to win Best Picture, ironically.
I know, but it's the only one I haven't seen. I do love Pan's
reviews are saying that. The reviews are saying that is style over substance.
That's every Guillermo del Toro film I feel, because the visual aspect of it, of all of them, and that's if. Let's go down the list of Guillermo del Toro films. Even Hellboy, we can even say, it is a comic book film, but I can see where they're getting that. That's every review, I think.
You know what else is a comic book film? Blade 2.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
The reviews do, however, are saying that Jacob Elordi gives a career performance as Frankenstein's monster. And I find that interesting. Apparently, he transforms into the role. It's very physical. I have yet to be impressed by anything I see by Jacob Elordi, so I'm kind of curious on this.
Curious to see it, yeah.
I will say that Jacob Elordi is a very physical actor, even though he's not, in my opinion, a particularly great actor. So maybe it plays to his strengths. The funny thing is, I was talking to Jacob Elordi's name came up at a conversation with somebody the other day, And
How does that come up in a conversation the other day?
it's
Who randomly just talks?
we were talking about something else he was in.
Gotcha. Okay.
And his name came up. And the person I was with, and she's probably gonna listen to this, so she knows I'm talking about her. But the person I was with was like, Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster makes sense because I can totally see him playing somebody brain dead. I lost my mind. Like, I don't think he emotes well, but this is a character that doesn't need to emote.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see just how much they lean into the physicality of Frankenstein's monster. I will say I have heard it doesn't lean necessarily into the horror aspect as much, which I also find interesting.
I can't talk right. Have you read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein?
I read it once in high school. I blocked out half that part of my life out, and I do not remember it.
Okay.
I know it's not. I know it's an allegory more than just a the monster.
So that's what I'm saying. I think maybe that comment is because maybe the film is meant to be seen that way,
right?
Versus an actual horror or just a monster movie.
I mean, we were talking about earlier how horror isn't about the monster being scary as much as it is about a fact of life that is inherently daunting. And I think that the allegory of unchecked science and madmen and all that is in and of itself a terrifying thing. The exploration of what drives somebody to create Frankenstein's monster. The kind of the adaptation of Aleister Gray's Poor Things that Yorgos did with Defoe and Emma Stone wasn't a horror movie, but I could easily flip it to a horror movie with one or two tweaks of the script because the sheer horror of the lack of autonomy that the monster has is something that is in and of itself kind of terrifying. I think anyway.
So what do you expect from Del Toro's Frankenstein?
I expect it to be very pretty.
Visually pleasing.
I think that's the first time the word I expect prettiness has ever been used for an upcoming monster movie. But I expect something pretty. I expect something that makes me want to explore more of the world. And I feel like that is most of what Guillermo del Toro's work does for me. I have fun spending time in the universe that Guillermo del Toro creates. More so than the characters that are implemented inside of those universes.
It's a good answer.
Thank you. Didn't even have it prepared.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer. It's a good answer.
Should
we talk about Jaws?
I guess we should. So one thing we're going to do on this show, going forward for the remainder of time, forever. We're doing the show for eternity. That's the true horror. We're immortal, and you're never getting rid of us. We ourselves are vampires.
How do you think? Okay, so shows like this, for instance, like podcasting. Podcasting wasn't even called like podcasting. We would be like on radio, right?
Right. It's the one thing mediums don't change. The method of delivery changes.
Yeah, I was getting ready to talk about like the method of delivery. So it would be radio, okay. And then it would be satellite radio,
which I consider radio.
Good, yeah, it's still radio. You're absolutely right. Satellite radio, and then we go into like what, YouTube?
I believe there can be a world where YouTube and radio coexist. I just think that
And then now we're like on audio formats, just podcasting.
podcasts are kind of a hybrid. This is going to air on YouTube, but I believe you're going to be putting it on Spotify, Apple.
Well, Spotify is video now.
It's true. We live in a world where Spotify has video. I'm old.
Like, yeah, Spotify is video now.
So
But everything like transcribes to audio as well.
do you know what's crazy? Speaking of Spotify, this has nothing to do with horror. I don't know about other shows, but I know Friends and Everybody Loves Raymond has their entire series for free on Spotify as pure audio.
Wait, what?
You can listen to sitcoms on Spotify.
I had no idea, but okay. Wow, the future.
That's how crazy Spotify's 2025 rollout. It's been very audacious in a weird way that
the
people don't
future.
really
Oh my god.
If you want the audio of something of your familiar TV favorites at night while you're to put you to sleep, but you don't want the light, Spotify's got you covered.
The future, my god. But could you imagine like 100 years from now we're still doing this show? It's
gonna happen, baby. Y'all better be prepared.
What do you think our delivery would be? Like, what would happen? Like, what would be in the future?
Probably something similar to Idiocracy.
Oh.
Where people are just sitting and in front of their TVs and that's all they do. And we're just frying their brains.
I like to think we provide some type of educational format or something. I feel like we provide something like to other than that. Come on.
So each week on the show, for the next apparently century, good luck, you guys.
Think about it. 100 years from now, they're gonna pull this up from the archives of the ashes of Spotify and be
ashes. I see what you did there.
They're gonna pull it up from YouTube and Meta and everywhere, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, you know what? I haven't heard this in a long time. Let's go revisit it."
They're gonna pull it from the ashes. It's gonna be the rose thorn in the moonies of everybody living, and we're just inevitable.
Yeah.
So every week on this show going forward, we are going to do a throwback movie review. After today's first episode, y'all can, at any point through the week, either put a comment on the video or tweet at one of us your suggestion of what movie you want to see us talk about, explore our thoughts on the movie's impact for a brief segment at the end of every week to kind of break the monotony of the weekly news format, if you will. But this week, since it's our first episode and there are no ways to take suggestions for an ill-established show, we decided this past Labor Day was the 50th anniversary re-release of one of the most iconic horror movies of all time.
Jaws. And not to be confused with the sequel, where the relative of Jaws goes and seeks revenge.
Not to be confused with Jaws 3D. That's the Michael Caine one, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Or the Universal Studios ride, Jaws.
Jaws 3D is so bad that somebody asked Michael Caine what his thoughts on being in that movie was. And Michael Caine said, "Who cares? I've never seen it. I never plan to see it. I don't think it's good, but it paid for my house."
It was a paycheck for Michael Caine.
I'm sorry?
I said my camera fell. Hold on.
I get lost in my own world. I can still see you, though.
Yeah, I had to move it while you were talking about Michael Caine paying for his house for Jaws.
I was looking up which one Michael Caine, which sequel it was, because all three of those blend in my brain. I would have never guessed the Ridge.
Anyways, back to Jaws. Not to be confused with the Universal Studios, right? Is it still around? I heard they got rid of it. Is that true?
Are you talking Universal Studios Los
Orlando.
Angeles? Orlando? I've never seen that ride in my life, and I was a season pass holder there for years, so it's not there anymore.
Okay, because I went on it.
I would have noticed it if it was there.
Well, I was a kid when I went to Universal Studios Orlando, so that was many moons ago. And
I love Universal Studios Orlando. They have another ride there. They still have the ET ride. I know that's been around forever. Speaking of Spielberg ride adaptations, they have a Jurassic Park ride. Man, Universal's made bank on Steven Spielberg.
I was going to ask you if they still have the Jurassic Park ride.
They just introduced a new Jurassic Park ride.
Shut up! For real?
They also introduced a new Kong ride that's awesome.
I was going to ask you if Kong was still there.
Oh, that one's relatively new. Like rolled out this decade new.
No, but they did have like another one, an older version.
I think they replaced the ride you're thinking of.
Yeah.
They did get rid of Rip Ride Rocket, which is my favorite roller coaster. I'm so mad about that, dude. Name me another roller coaster where I can go upside down to see the Hella Good by No Doubt. I'll wait.
But yeah, no, they did have Jaws there at one time. I'm surprised the ET's still there.
The ET is still one of its more popular rides too.
Do they still have Back to the Future?
No.
Because they did have Back to the Future at one time.
The top of my head, they have all of the Simpsons world still. Whatever. They have all the superhero stuff. They have all the Harry Potter stuff. Mm-hmm. They're making more Harry Potter stuff. They still have the Hulk, which rules. They got rid of Rip Ride Rocket recently, which I was just lamenting. They have the Kong ride. They have the Jurassic ride. Both of those coasters kick ass. Anyway, let's get to Jaws. We were talking before the show, and you told me you had a Jaws story. So I have a Jaws story too. Do you want to go first, or should I share?
It's not really a story. Okay, I once heard Chris.
More of a tidbit.
Yeah, I once heard Chris say this, and
should we clarify who that is for people?
Yeah, you should probably do that.
For those who don't know, when Ash references Chris, she is referencing the guitarist from the Vincent Black Shadows.
Bassist.
Regardless, she's referencing the band member of the Vincent Black Shadows.
Yeah, well, or just Nim Vind.
I'm sorry, I blanked on his stage name. Looks like I'm the one killing the Saturday night recording.
For real. But because that's his top song. One of his top songs. I once heard. Okay, so if y'all don't know, Chris likes to tell jokes. I heard him say this once on at a live show in Austin. There was a video of it when they came when he played for Nosferatu Fest. Sorry, that's a mouthful. Nosferatu Fest. And I just so happened to see the video on YouTube, and he made this joke, and I thought it was funny because we were talking about Jaws. So he had said, if you watch Jaws backwards, it's like the shark is giving limbs back to the people.
He's gonna need a bigger boat.
If you watch Jaws backwards, it's a very heartwarming tale about a shark giving limbs back to people.
Anyway, so I had a friend that saw Jaws for the first time in the IMAX re-release.
Or Jaws' Revenge.
The original. I should make him watch Jaws' The Revenge, though.
What's your favorite Jaws movie? What's your favorite movie, and why is it Jaws' Revenge?
Jaws 3D.
I think that was that film made by that company? What is that? What's that?
I wouldn't know.
No, it's Canon. Was that movie made by Canon?
No, Canon does not make Jaws sequels. Those are Universal Pictures.
Oh, that's just embarrassing.
It's
just embarrassing.
Well, we know Spielberg didn't attach DreamWorks to those news fests.
Canon picked up so many sequels and made them that I assumed that they did Jaws Revenge.
So a friend of mine, and I find this interesting, a friend of mine saw Jaws for the first time during its IMAX re-release, right? And a lot of people probably did. It made $8.1 million at the box office, finished second behind Sinners for that weekend. That's how much of a cultural phenomenon Jaws still is. I mean, let me tell you, I can't even go to a Rays game in Tampa without a 3-0 count. Here comes the Jaws music, which they do because they're hunting their pitch, they're stalking, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember if the Jaws sound was made by a cello or a bass in an orchestra. But I want to say it was probably a stand-up bass. I think that made the sound.
So I get a whole, which is basically a cello.
No, it's not. Stand-up bass and a cello are not the same.
They look awfully similar.
Size, dimension, and sound. Two different things. I would know. I was in orchestra for a very long time growing up. I played violin.
What if I told you a violin is basically a fiddle?
I could agree that it's the style of playing.
Oh, I thought that was just going to be just as much of a hot thing. That's boring.
No. Fiddle's the style of playing, fiddling.
So he's watching Jaws for the first time. He's in the theater. He's loving it. But I get a message. He said, "You're a movie guy." And I go, "Okay. What's up?" And he goes, "I just saw a whole ass titty. Can you tell me why Jaws is rated PG?" And so I had to tell him that the PG-13, that everything was rated PG back then. You had to be the R was the highest rating, but they weren't stingy with ratings, and you had to be very, very risque for an R. Like, Airplane is a PG-rated comedy. That's an R-rated comedy if it's made now. Kind of. It was a very different time. So I was telling him, Spielberg not only ended the blockbuster with Jaws, but Spielberg's biggest blockbuster, about 10 years after Jaws, with Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, is the reason that was 82, I think. So about 6 years after Jaws. The reason they made the PG-13 rating was in response to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So Spielberg himself is the reason Spielberg movies aren't rated PG anymore, which is just an interesting tidbit I find funny that I explained to him. But they did a full 4K IMAX restoration. It looked really good, Ash. It looked phenomenal. And I haven't watched it a ton in my life, but it was great to rewatch it now with a modern lens, because there's so many small things that make Jaws great. There's a shot early on before Roy Scheider. I love Roy Scheider. Before one of those guys that could have only been a leading man in his own time. That where Roy Scheider is researching the shark, right? And he's flipping through the pages like in a book. And you see through the lens of his glasses, the page is flipping. Phenomenal shot, but it's so much better than the shots that utilize a similar technique afterward, because of the way the lighting was on his glasses. Just made it look so real, so authentic. And it's those small things that really help build the tension of what the shark can do, because he's talking about all these things about how much sharks weigh, how long sharks can live, can they really live to 1,000 years. All these things he's finding out in his research to Richard Dreyfuss later on. But while he's researching, you see him going through the pages, but it's also a shot on his eyes. So you see the fear in his eyes at the same time. it's not necessarily a fear of, oh my God, animated, I'm scared face. It's a cold, blank stare of, this thing can kill me in one shot. And you really get that sense when you get to his improv line when they're on the boat with, you're gonna need a bigger boat. The moment he sees how large the great white is, he realizes we're not equipped for this. And it tells the audience they're screwed. And I think it's such a well put together film. What are some of the standout parts of Jaws for you?
I did not see the restoration of Jaws. Like, I haven't seen the new actual video of it. I think Jaws is definitely, I always say it's a film that everyone needs to at least see at least once. But as far as any standout points, I don't really have any other than
I guess I'll be taking the rest of this segment because I do have a little bit more to say. Earlier in the show, we talked about the fear of the known versus the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Jaws does great is the first part is the fear of the unknown. You don't see the shark until the entire city's on the beach on the 4th of July. The mayor, the moron mayor, who doesn't want to shut down the beach, doesn't comprehend just how dangerous the shark is because he doesn't know. And then the further in you get, the city captures the baby shark and thinks, oh yeah, sharks aren't that big of a deal, but it's the great white they got to deal with. The fear of the unknown. Then when you actually get to the great white part of the movie, it becomes a movie of the fear of the known, and the fear of oneself. I think that the fear of oneself comes in with the exploration of why the guy hunts sharks. The scene where he talks about being in Japan during the war and how the sharks wiped out hundreds of the men and only a handful survived. He saw firsthand just how scary a creature is. That was his motivation to help Richard Dreyfuss and Roy Scheider. I think the exploration of the fear of one's trauma is just as much a story of that movie as the fear of the shark itself. Like I said earlier, great horror is horror that has something to say, something that has a point that is so humane beyond its backdrop that drives the story. And I think that movie is the guy in the war not dealing with his trauma, Roy Scheider not dealing with the trauma of almost drowning as a child, which makes him not want to go in the water until he feels he has to. The first time he goes into the water is when the shark is about to eat his kid. Like, he had to get over his fear of the water and the trauma because he wants to save his kid.
It's okay.
I think that
you never go into the ocean, so you have no fear of the great white.
Draven thinks he can take care of a great white shark. So I think that movie, what people miss about that movie is the effects don't look that scary in 2025, but the exploration of trauma that drives the story is something that just wasn't happening in 1975. 1975 was the same year as Cuckoo's Nest, and that was the first big exploration of trauma really on film. And it came out right around the same time as Jaws did. So those two movies were more or less groundbreaking for that. But it's also a movie of the fear of the known in the second half. Richard Dreyfuss knows how dangerous a great white shark is. Roy Scheider researched and learned just what he was going up against. The shark hunter knew, it's going to be a big one. They know what they're going up against, and they don't know how they're going to defeat it. That's why Richard Dreyfuss brings the compressed air, because they need something that works after the barrel technique that catches smaller sharks doesn't work. And I think it's a well-made film. Everything from the pacing, the fact that you don't see the shark until the 4th of July, even though you see the kills. All of these things build, of course, the music, to the sound, build the suspense, the anxiety of how is this small island going to work around it. But I truly think that it is one of the biggest accomplishments for horror, and I think that the loud minority audience that says we've seen a bunch of movies like this doesn't realize those cliches are cliches because Jaws made them popular movie techniques. You know what I mean?
You know, another interesting thing about it has nothing to do with Jaws, but in the similar aspect of American Werewolf in London.
Okay.
You don't see the transformation until the end.
Right.
It's just a constant build up until the end, until he gets his transformation, and then of course he attacks, London.
And I love stuff like that. Because it allows you to by the time the characters finally turn, you're already connected to the character. The transformation doesn't matter if you don't care about the person turning into the werewolf.
I also think like a lot of modern day films, like horror, thriller, whatever it may be, kind of lacks the slow build and aspect of what it's actually about.
Right.
I think a lot of current day films are missing that. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know if it's because maybe, everyone's attention span is different now, or we just want to get to the jump scare.
I don't know how much it has to do with attention span as much as I guess it would have to do with attention span. Netflix gave an edict last year, and it was the stupidest, most anti-art edict I've ever heard. They sent down an edict for that any of their non-award contenders, that anything they're producing, so anything that is a Netflix original bought at a festival, right into the script, basically dialogue that tells you what's happening, so as it happens, and explain it so that people can watch the movie while scrolling their phones without having to look up. The idea being they don't want to watch movies 24/7, but we need them on our service 24/7. So even if it's just background noise, they're watching our ads. We can tell you this movie had so many streams, which raises our stock because it shows interest and viability in our product. Whatever the case may be, there are hundreds of ways tech companies, especially streaming tech companies, make money off the consumer just having their app open. But when you have people in the industry giving edicts like that, there's only so much say a filmmaker has. And nobody's quite gone to that extreme that Netflix has other than Netflix. And from what I've seen, there was a lot of pushback from people within the industry, so it may not matter. But I do think studios think the audience are dumb. So, and studio notes sometimes can be a good thing, but most of the time, they aren't a good thing. Could you imagine if a studio head had told Steven Spielberg or Ridley Scott, you need to show the shark or the xenomorph in the first scene? Nobody cares about the big reveal that comes later in the movie. And we don't have those two classics. We don't have the Alien franchise if you see the xenomorph right away. Because nobody cares, because the genie's out of the bottle before the bottle even gets, genie's out of the lamp before the audience even gets to rub the lamp. So, I don't know, but it's kind of my thought on that.
And I think we should close on that thought.
I am good with that thought too, because the thought gives a lot of indication on where we are in the industry as a whole. The Ash, where can the good people find you?
At A Rose Distortion on all social media. I only have one account. I will not have multiple accounts. And then, of course, we have at DeathArts13, but I'm hardly on there, but it's there. I'll get your notifications.
Could you imagine multiple Ashes? I don't think the world could handle it.
I don't think so either, but there's still people that try.
That
is
a terrifying thought.
Yeah, I don't know why they do, but they try.
They try. They just want your clout. So, and of course, you can find me at the Jameus, on Twitter, everywhere. Well, not Instagram, but my Instagram's private, and I will not be accepting your follow. I need one social media just for me. At the Jameus on Twitter, Blue Sky. You can find my articles currently at TWM Plus. I believe they're rebranding. I need to talk to Richard, but I don't remember what the name is, so we're going with TWM Plus.
Fair enough. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there since I left like a year ago.
And of course, you can find content I've written for Death Arts 13 on the channel that you are currently watching this video on, as well as our brand new podcast every Sunday talking about anything and all things horror. Remember, leave a comment below telling us what movies you would like us to talk about. Subscribe.
I forgot. They could also do comments on Spotify too if they want to.
That's gotta be a new thing too, right?
Huh?
That's gotta be a new thing too, right?
It's been there. I just don't use it, but I'll leave it open.
I didn't realize that was a thing. Maybe Metallica.
I forget it's a thing. I forget.
Maybe if I said Metallica something, they'll know just how much I feel about Saint Anger. But you can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, basically anywhere.
Every audio.
Any and every audio format you get your podcast from.
We're also
Death
on
Arts 13.
We're also on Venmo. We're on Fire TV. If I have time, pretty soon we'll be on Roku TV. So there.
Ooh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but we are on Fire TV. You can download our app. We're there. The episodes do take a lot longer to load on that because I don't update it that often, but it's an option for you to view it.
Anyway, I am the Jameus. I was joined by the always lovely Ash Rose and her feline friend, Draven.
That is my son.
Maybe we could make Draven our podcast mascot. We'll see how it turns out.
That is my son. How dare you?
I mean, it would be the first time one of our shows was mascotted by one of our pets.
Why not? We'll see how it goes. Anyways, have a good day, good night, wherever you are.
Good, terrifying night. But I hope we haunt your dreams until next week.
Look here. Look here, Ecopod Crane.
Hey, that was a great podcast name. I'm back.
All right, it's time for my favorite part, the credits. Writers, Ash, that's me, your host. Jameus, the Jameus Mooney. All research is done by the Death Arts 13 research team. That includes me sometimes, Ash, and also Jameus does the research as well. Executive producer, that's me, Ashley Rose, your host. And special thanks to Curse Cosmetics, Abracadabra NYC, 8-Bit Magnet Co., Rep Sports, Raise Energy, Club Early Bird, Canva, because I feel like no one thinks Canva, and Secret Society of Goths, telling secrets for over 7 years. This has been a DeathArts13.com production, so give us a follow at DeathArts13.com.